Hi there, my name is Rick Boyce. I am the Assistant Director of the NKU Research and Education Field Station, or NKU REFS. And I'm going to give you a tour today of some of the spring flowers that are in the St. Anne's Woods and Wetlands. This is a large, more than 100-acre preserve that is administered by the Campbell County Conservation District, and NKU's field station is embedded in part of that. We're going to start in the upland portion today. This is a region behind the old convent, which used to own all the land that's now part of St. Anne's Woods and Wetland. And I'm going to start actually in this patch of Dutchman's breeches. Let's see if we can, there we go. All right. Okay, so these are a common upland wildflower, and they get their name because they look like a pair of pants hanging upside down in the laundry. All right, and here we have a bunch of spring beauty, one of the most common and one of the most pretty spring flowers really anywhere in the state. And they range in color from almost pure white to dark pink. All right, now we see an example of May apples. Now this one that I'm looking at right here, you can see it has two leaves, and the flower bud is actually in between. That'll open sometime this month, and then it'll make a red fruit in May, hence the name. Now those here we have ones that just have a single leaf, and so those are vegetative and they're not going to show any flowering. All right, now also next to this there's a clump of Solomon seal. All right, so these kind of bend over, and they usually have to get pretty big to get flowers. So these guys probably are not going to flower, but the flowers hang below the stem. Okay, so now we have a patch of, it's a very close relative actually, of Dutchman's breeches. But if you look closely at the flower, you're going to see that it's more heart-shaped. And in fact, it looks a lot like bleeding hearts, to which it's closely related. This is called squirrel corn. You really need the flowers to tell which one you have here, because the foliage of the two looks identical to each other. Now here we see one that's really easy to overlook because the flowers aren't that prominent. This is, well, has several names. Yellow corydalus is one of them. I've heard it called fumitory and fumort as well. And it's actually in the poppy family, even though the flowers look nothing like poppies. Now, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to see this flower today. This is a cutleaf toothwort, and they're getting near the end of their flowering period, and they're starting to disappear. I also just happened to notice next to it too, you can see kind of looks like parsley, and in fact it's in the same family as parsley. This is our earliest spring flower. This is called Harbinger of Spring, and so the flowers are long gone on this. It tends to bloom in March. All right, and then just over here, one other flower that I wanted to point out to you. There it is. Okay, you've probably all seen chickweed. It has 5 petals, and it's a very small flower, and they're kind of, each petal's divided. This one's much larger though. This one is also a chickweed, but this is star chickweed, and it is native. To compare its size here, I just happened to find, actually, here we go. Oh, there it is. All right, this is common chickweed, which is not native, but is closely related. Now, I don't want to overlook violets. This is obviously a yellow violet, sometimes called downy yellow violet. And then over next to it, we have the common blue violet as well. It is common, but still very much appreciated. Here we see one of my favorite spring wildflowers. And in fact, I've actually transplanted this and grow this in my gardens at home. This is called celandine poppy or wood poppy. It's quite different from lesser celandine, which is a real problematic invasive that we have here. But this is native, and it's a lovely plant. And here we have one of the 2 trout lily species that are common in the area. This is yellow trout lily, it seems to come up a little bit later than its close cousin, white trout lily, which we'll also see today. Okay, well now I'm down in the wetland area, and we're actually very close to the Ohio River. In fact, we are in the floodplain. And you're going to see a lot of the same wildflowers, but there's a few things that are different. So one thing I'm going to look at is a relative of a plant we've already seen today, and that is the white trout lily. Now the foliage looks exactly the same. Until a flower pops up, you don't know which one you've got. But that one is definitely a white trout lily. Now some flowers are easy to overlook, and this is one of them. A very tiny white flower, and it's on a plant that's got opposite leaves, and in fact the leaves meet each other. They don't have petioles on them. This is called cornflower, and it is a native. It is a native. All right, here we've got a huge patch of mayapple here. And you can see it goes on for some distance. The interesting thing about this is these plants are probably all genetically the same. A lot of these spring flowers spread primarily vegetatively. And so when you get a big patch of any spring flower like this, it usually means they're a clone. They're all derived from the same parent plant. All right. Next to it, I want to show you something that's much smaller. And again, it's one of these obscure things that are very easy to overlook here. This plant is not very big, and the name it has is even bigger than the plant is. It's false mermaid weed. And I'm not going to zoom in any further because I don't think you'll be able to see much. The flower is sort of greenish yellow, nothing to look at. But it is one of our native spring wildflowers. All right, in many places, spring beauty, I mean literally carpets. Really all the white and pink that you see here is spring beauty. And, it's a really amazing plant. Now, of course, this will disappear once the trees start to leaf out. Okay, here we have a clump of one of our native trilliums. This one is called toad trillium or sessile trillium, and unlike some of the others, the flower just sticks right up from the center of the 3 leaflets that make up this plant. Now this plant you see with the heart-shaped leaves, this is wild ginger, and let's see if I can zoom in here. Flowers are kind of unusual. There it is. All right, they actually lie along the ground, and they're sort of a reddish brown, and they're on the ground or near the ground because they're actually pollinated by ants, and so the flowers have to be where the ants are. Here we've got a patch of blue flowers. This is called Jacob's Ladder, or despite the fact that it's actually native, sometimes Greek valerian. But the leaves are arranged opposite each other, and I guess it reminded somebody of a ladder. All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed this tour. I've certainly enjoyed putting it together. If you would like more information about St. Anne's Woods and Wetland, or the NKU field station, best thing to do is to send an email, and you can send it to refs@nku.edu, and we would love to hear from you.